So as the REST API, it is for what? For communicating with the database. Now we need a way that the LLMs can communicate with your system. So what happens is that, so MCP, because it's the one that looks like the API, the application programming interface. So the same way happens to the MCP. So just think MCP as a API for what? For LLM, and for API it is for what? For our system. Okay, so the way we are designing the API for our Flutter app to communicate with the database, so the same case we're gonna have the MCP to communicate with our database. Okay, so here we do what? So for example, now first of all, MCP, so the model context protocol, so this one was found by Cloud, so that company for that AI, that one. So they came up with this protocol. Okay, so the model context protocol, this is a standardized communication protocol that enables AI assistants to securely interact with external tools. Okay, so external tools, data sources, and services. So think of it as a universal translator that allows AI models to extend their capabilities beyond their training data by connecting to real-world systems. Okay, so the core MCP concepts here, you need to understand that. So the MCP establishes a client-server architecture where MCP client, so the AI assistant, maybe like Cloudy, maybe DeepSeek, maybe ChatGPT, and other things. So and others like Gemini and others. So the MCP server. So we have said the MCP server. So the MCP server. So we have said the MCP establishes what? A client server architecture where the MCP client, so that is our Cloudy and the DeepSeek and Gemini and others. So then we need the MCP server. So the MCP server here, this is now your application that exposes the tools and the data. Okay, so that is the server. So keep that in mind. And the client is who? Our Cloudy or any LLM. Okay, so then the protocol that we're gonna use here is the JSON RPC. I'm gonna use the 2.0 based communication standard. Okay, so if you can go to your browser and search for JSON RPC, you can be able to go to that place and you'll be able to see what's going on there. So the standard JSON. So then we're gonna say what? So the key components in MCP, it is the tools. So these are the functions the AI can call to perform what? Actions. Then we can have the resources. So the resources are the data sources the AI can read from. Then the prompts, so the template interactions for specific workflows. And then we have the messages, that is the structured communication between client and server. Okay, so as you can see here in our in this image, you can see now we have the Flutter mobile app, or maybe a React web app. So we have the admin panel. So currently here we are using the Flutter. So then we need to have the AI assistant. So currently we're gonna use the DeepSeek through the open router. So here, let me show you now. The first thing first, so it does what? The resource discovery. It discovers that. Then we're gonna have what? We're gonna have the tool execution, context management, state synchronization, security layer, event streaming, then the protocol adapters. So this is the model context protocol. So this one now gonna communicate with what? Our backend services like Django, or you can use Fast API. So here maybe you have, for example, assume we have the product service where you can allow it to be able to interact with the catalog management, inventory tracking, and others. Okay, the same way with the order service and others. Okay, so then after that we have so this one is the one that gonna interact with what? our Django gonna interact with the database, okay, the data storage. So like the Redis, so Elasticsearch, MongoDB, RabbitMQ, and others. Okay, so that is it. So for example, so the real world MCP use case like this one, so you can see what AI, what assistant, what so AI assistant accessing product catalog via MCP to answer customer queries. So you can also have the automated order processing with AI driven fraud detection and inventory updates. Okay, so now the benefits. So the key benefits here, it is for MCP, why we need to use MCP. So the unified protocol for AI service communication, the standardized context sharing across services, the real-time state synchronization, secure tool execution with proper permissions, seamless integration with existing APIs, and then event-driven architecture support. Okay, so when you come here, so in our e-commerce system, so we're gonna implement this one. So let me zoom it a bit so that we'll be able to see what we are doing here. Okay, so the one that we'll be using in our application. Okay, so here we need to come here. So what is MCP? We use the JSON RPC 2.0 protocol for AI models. Then it connects the models to external tools, enables real data access, standardized communication. Okay, so here the client. So the client, we said it is our cloud and or any other LLM. Okay, so this one, the capabilities here is to send the JSON RPC request, then process the tool responses, then handle the real-time data, execute business logic. So then the sample request we're gonna send, it is now we're gonna say tools, then we're gonna list, then tools.call, you can call them like that. So you send the JSON RPC to our server. So our server, that is our system. Okay, so here in our server, the core components here, it is we're gonna have some MCP server class, message routing, then we can have the tools, so like the sale analytics, where we can say the revenue tracking, order metrics, inventory management, like that. Okay, so then from there we're gonna implement also the service layer. So the service layer, we can have the MCP singleton, tool registration, request handling, and then we need to have the way to gonna integrate with the Django. Okay, so then we give the response to our but before you give the response, we come here, our server will interact with so our server will interact with with the database layer. So we are gonna interact with these models, maybe order item, product, user, inventory, category. Then we do the operations like aggregations, filtering, joins, analytics, forecasting, and others. Then we do we get the query results, then we process them here, then we give them back to our client. So that is the process that we're gonna follow, so that we're gonna do we're gonna be able to interact with the database. Okay, so the real world use cases here, it is for business intelligence, revenue analytics, then sales trends, performance KPIs, customer insights, and others. Then inventory operations, so you're gonna say stock monitoring, low stock alerts, like that. Then customer service, AI automation, like that. Okay, so the sample AI conversation, maybe a user will say show me the sales analytics for the last 30 days with top products. Okay, so the AI will respond with so it's gonna call the get sales analytics, so this method. So then it will provide 30 days, then the metrics, we're gonna pass the revenue and the products. Okay, then the response, it is this one. Okay, so like that. So it looks like that. So the next part, it is let us go here let me show you something. So the MCP, what benefits? So that is it: standardized protocol, real-time data access, and secure communication, and tool composability. So after we have done that, now we are, even though, let me see whether we have something here below. So like this one, okay, the MCP protocol flow. Okay, so let me show you here. So the MCP protocol flow, looks like this. Okay, so the AI sends the JSON RPC request, so the MCP server routes to tool, so then the tool queries the database, the Django models, then the database returns data. So the moment it returns data, we do what? We do the response sent back to the AI model. Okay, like that. So that is it. So the next thing that we need to do, let me show you something. So our e-commerce MCP server architecture gonna look like this. Okay, so the one that we are going to build, so let me zoom here. So let me zoom at 150. So it looks like this. Okay, so we have what? Our AI assistant here, which will be DeepSeek. Then it will send the JSON RPC 2.0 request to what? To MCP server. Then from there, it will have what? The clients will send what? So this is the client request. So it will come to our MCP server core. So we're gonna have the core.py, where we're gonna have to have the message what handler. So this one gonna protocol parser, then also to registry for tools what definition, server layer, MCP service, singleton pattern, error handling. Okay, so that is the part that we're gonna have for MCP server for core.py. Then we're gonna have what? The tools. Okay, so this one, so server routes to appropriate tool. Okay, so through the core. Okay, so here you're gonna do what? Gonna have the sales analytics, inventory status, customer insights, order management, AI recommendations, and inventory forecast. Like that, we're gonna have that one. So then this one the tools gonna interact with what? We're gonna interact with the database models. Okay, so then it will expose like that. So we're gonna use what? The sync to async, like that. Then the database here is what? PostgreSQL database. So that is our part for MCP introduction. So now you need to go to the code and you're gonna see how we're gonna implement it. So let us go to the code. So in our code, we need to start working on it. So here, so we need to start working on this part.